My name is Camila. I'm 30 years old, and I've been working at a tech company in Denver for nearly 7 years. I always believed that hard work and dedication would be recognized. I've never been late, never received a warning, and I always volunteered for the toughest tasks. Yet, one April morning, everything collapsed in an instant. At 9:15 a.m., just as I returned to my desk after a short meeting, a security guard appeared beside me. His voice was calm, not loud but firm. "Camila, please gather your personal belongings. The company has made a decision." I froze. 20 colleagues around me kept their heads down at their screens, pretending to type, but their eyes kept stealing glances at me. A cardboard box was placed on my desk, cold and impersonal like a verdict. Karen from HR stepped forward, her face carrying a fake expression of pity. "Take your time packing, no rush," she said, but her tapping foot betrayed her impatience. I picked up the "World's Best Colleague" mug a coworker had given me and placed it in the box. Next went the small cactus I had nurtured for 6 months, finally turning green again. My business card, boldly stating Systems Analyst, rested neatly in the box, still warm from the printer just last week. Each item felt like a knife to my heart. When my hand touched the framed photo of me and my mom on my college graduation day, I hesitated. She had passed away 3 years ago, never getting to see me hold a steady job. I remembered her proud eyes that day vividly. I stood frozen too long, until the security guard gently reminded me, and I snapped back to reality. I stepped out of the building, box in my arms, and slumped down in the parking lot. They called it a restructuring, but gave no real reason. Everything was reduced to a few cold lines of text. In that moment, it felt as though all the years of dedication had been erased. My phone buzzed. A message from my dad appeared. "How's work going, honey?" I replied. "I just got fired." 10 seconds later, the screen showed only a thumbs-up emoji, nothing more. No concern, no care. Before I could even process it, a message from my younger brother, Ethan, popped up. A mocking gif of a dancer on stage, littered with laughing emojis. I bit my lip until it bled. Ethan turned my humiliation into entertainment, and the cruel part was that Dad had often covered for him, treating him like the golden boy. Memories of my childhood flooded back. I had been a diligent child, straight A's, even earned a full college scholarship. Meanwhile, Ethan had been suspended multiple times for misbehavior. Yet, whenever I brought home an award, Dad would just mumble, "Good, but your brother needs more encouragement." When Ethan failed a test, he was immediately gifted a brand new pickup truck, with Dad saying, "So he'll have more motivation." I got nothing but a pat on the shoulder. When I graduated college with honors, Dad's response was a faint smile. "All right, that's fine. Ethan's thinking about switching to a 4-year program anyway." My achievements were never enough to make him proud. Meanwhile, Ethan's every mistake was excused. Sitting in the car, clutching the box, I felt pushed aside not just by the company, but by my own family. I didn't shed tears. Instead, a quiet rage consumed me. For years I had endured, hoping that if I worked hard enough, things would be different. But now I understood. No matter how well I performed, to them, I would always be just a shadow next to the pampered son. I started the engine and drove out of the parking lot, my heart heavy with bitterness. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. I could no longer live under this disdain. This wasn't just about losing a job. This was the beginning of a storm I had never dared to imagine. I sank into those unemployed days like someone adrift. My tiny apartment in Denver felt like a cage, cold coffee on the table, a forgotten pizza box on the counter, and me wearing the same pajamas over and over. Every morning I'd wake up, open my laptop, scroll through a few job postings, then shut it again, too exhausted to type a single application. On a Friday afternoon, as I sat dazed in front of my meaningless screen, a thick cream-colored envelope was slipped under the door. Slanted blue ink spelled my name clearly, Miss Camila Davis. The formal address made my skin crawl. My dad would never call me that, and neither would my friends. I tore it open. Inside was an invitation to Ethan's promotion party. held at Maple Ridge Club, the same place Dad always flaunted his connections. I gripped the invitation, my body trembling. Less than 3 weeks ago, I'd lost my job without a single inquiry. And now they were inviting me to celebrate Ethan, as if to deepen my humiliation. I was about to toss it in the trash when my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated a few seconds before picking up. Camila, it's me, Mr. Grant. My heart clenched. Richard Grant, CEO of Orion Technologies, who had shaken my hand on my first day and said, "We need people like you." His voice today was hoarse, urgent, unlike before. "I know this call is inconvenient, but I need to meet you tonight. It concerns your termination, and it's directly connected to your brother." I froze. "What are you talking about? How is Ethan involved?" "I can't explain everything over the phone. Moonlight Cafe, 12th Street, 7 p.m. Come alone." He hung up, leaving me bewildered. Driving there, my heart raced. Denver's lights sparkled, traffic surged, but my mind only asked one question. Why would my CEO call me alone, and why mention Ethan? Moonlight Cafe was quiet, yellow light washing over dark wooden tables. I stepped in, spotting Mr. Grant in a shadowed corner, back against the wall, a single untouched cup of coffee before him. He looked older than the last time we met, dark circles under his eyes, hunched shoulders, eyes sharp and wary. "Thank you for coming," he said, voice low. "I'm not sure you'll believe me, but your career didn't end because of restructuring. I was forced." I leaned forward. "Forced by whom?" He pulled a phone from his leather briefcase, swiped a few times, and handed it to me. The screen displayed a blurry old photo, a young Grant with an arm around a girl who looked barely 17, both holding red plastic cups at a college party. "Ethan brought this to my office 3 weeks ago," he said quietly. "He threatened to post it online, send it to the board, even my wife, claiming evidence I harassed a female employee. In exchange, I had to clear obstacles. And the obstacle was you." I froze, my hands cold. "Impossible. Ethan isn't sophisticated enough for something like this." "You're right. He's not that clever. But he knows who to lean on." I investigated. The girl in the photo was actually 20, not underage as Ethan altered to make her appear younger. Ethan fabricated the evidence. I examined it closely, noticing the distortions. Skewed lighting, her face subtly warped. Clearly, someone had edited it. "Why tell me now?" I asked, voice shaking. Grant sighed. "Because I found her now a middle-aged woman living in Texas." She confirmed she was of age in the photo. I have enough proof to fight back. But Ethan didn't stop there. I discovered he's allied with several members at Morrison and Parker, the company he just joined as management. "They're planning to eliminate you completely from the industry." The floor seemed to crumble beneath me. Ethan hadn't just enjoyed my dismissal, he was deliberately trying to destroy my career to climb higher. "You have to decide," Mr. Grant said, eyes sharp. "I have proof, but if I alone speak out, it'll look like self-interest. But if you join me, we can turn the tables. The question is, are you willing?" I clenched my fists, picturing my dad smirking at my successes, endlessly praising Ethan for doing nothing. And Ethan, turning my humiliation into a joke. A strange surge rose within me, not sadness anymore, but cold determination. "I want to know the full truth," I said firmly. "And I will no longer stay silent." Mr. Grant's eyes softened, as if a weight had lifted. He nodded slightly. "Then the real game begins." Outside the glass, the night wind blew across the streetlights. I knew, from this moment on, I was no longer Camila who bowed her head. A week after our meeting at Moonlight Cafe, I walked through the glass doors of Orion Technologies with a new ID badge. No longer senior analyst, this one read simply, "Consultant, Mr. Grant had arranged for me to return under a short-term contract, keeping things low profile. "You'll have access to the data vault and the archives. Everything else, act like an outsider," he instructed, eyes sharp but trusting. My temporary workspace was in the basement, a cramped room filled with aging servers, dusty boxes, and flickering fluorescent lights. To anyone else, this was a demotion. To me, it felt like a secret headquarters. Few people came down here, which allowed me to start my investigation quietly. On the first day, I began with Morrison and Parker's expense reports, the law firm where Ethan had just been named Director of Project Development. The title sounded impressive, but the financial records in my hands reeked of irregularities. Over 6 months, Morrison and Parker had paid 4 market research invoices to a company called Brightway Consulting LLC, totaling over $38,000. I typed the registered address into the system. A mailbox in Delaware. No office, no staff, no website. I dug further. Tracing the credit card used to pay maintenance fees, surprise, it linked back to a subsidiary account. Under my father, Robert Davis. Blood boiled in my veins. I printed all the invoices and compiled them into a stack. This wasn't a mistake. It was blatant collusion between my father and Ethan. A shell company had been created to siphon money from Morrison and Parker in exchange for a cushy position for Ethan. That night, in my apartment, I spread the documents across the table. Outside the window, late-season snow drifted down. I held each sheet, scrutinizing the numbers. $9,500 here, $11,200 there, all labeled strategic consulting. In reality, it was open embezzlement. The next day, I took a bold step. Posing as an accounting employee, I called Morrison and Parker to inquire about Brightway Consulting's research reports. On the other end, the secretary hesitated. I don't see any records in the files, but the invoices were approved by Mr. Ethan Davis. That was enough to confirm my suspicions. That night, I descended to the basement again, rifling through Orion's old filing boxes, seeking any trace of Ethan's footprints. Amid yellowed stacks, I found faxes exchanged between Orion and Morrison from 4 months prior. They vaguely referenced a cooperation agreement that had never been disclosed. At the bottom, an electronic signature, Robert Davis. My father. My heart pounded. Not only Ethan, but my father had pulled him into this scheme, creating a phantom company to divert funds. Ethan was a pawn, yes, but one willing to trample me to get ahead. As I jotted down notes, the fluorescent light flickered, and a voice spoke behind me. "Looking for something, Camila?" I spun around. Margaret, the longtime cleaning staff, stood there, a woman in her 60s, silver hair loose but eyes sharp and bright. She set down her cleaning bag and folded her arms, watching me as if she'd been observing all along. I'm just reviewing archive files," I replied, trying to sound calm. Margaret smiled faintly. "Sweetheart, I've been cleaning down here for 30 years. I can tell when someone's digging where they shouldn't. The thing is, you're digging in the right direction." I froze. She pulled a crumpled envelope from her cleaning cart and placed it on the table. Inside was a printed email exchange between Ethan and someone signed D. Morrison. The message was short but precise. "Get rid of Camila. The more successful she is, the more she blocks us. I'll handle the board. You take care of Brightway." I slumped into the chair, hands trembling over the stack of papers. The proof was undeniable. Ethan and my father hadn't just stolen my career, they had plotted to push me out of the industry entirely. "Why are you helping me?" I asked, voice catching. Margaret's smile vanished. 30 years ago, I was a skilled accountant. But as a single woman, without connections, I was pushed aside. They promoted incompetent men simply because of family ties and golf outings. "I see myself in you, and I won't let history repeat." I bit my lip, feeling as if I'd just found my first true ally. She leaned in, whispering, "Keep these papers safe. There will come a time when you need to show the world their true face." I folded the envelope, tucking it into my bag. Inside me, anger and resolve burned together, fierce and unstoppable. The next day, I carried the new stack of files, a mix of excitement and tension surging through me, as if preparing for a battle with an uncertain outcome. Margaret had emphasized, "Camila, if you want to reclaim what's rightfully yours, you must proceed carefully. They know outsiders dig, but they don't expect someone operating from the shadows." I began with the receipts Ethan had presented as strategic partner development project expenses. Tracing each line and invoice, I noticed enormous sums listed as payments for the Las Vegas 2025 seminar. The seminar's name sounded professional, promising a global strategy for the tech market. But when I called the organizer directly, the person in charge just laughed. "We don't have any event by that name. Not a single person from Orion Technologies is registered." My blood boiled. A fabricated seminar, just as Margaret had warned Ethan and my father were using sophisticated tricks to legitimize siphoning company funds. I quickly printed a list of the supposed attendees, verifying each phone number and email. All fake. No one responded. Not a single address existed. But that wasn't all. Next were the premium golf invoices at Pebble Creek Country Club, each trip over $12,000. I visited the club to verify. The receptionist frowned when I asked, "Mr. Ethan Davis?" She shook her head. "We've never seen him. No tea times or membership account." I meticulously noted every detail. They weren't just creating fake invoices, they were generating entirely fictitious expenses to divert real money. Finally, I turned to a line item labeled Strategic Consulting for nearly $47,000, which Ethan claimed was for Brightway Consulting. Cross-referencing bank accounts, invoices, and email exchanges, it was clear. No meetings had occurred, no reports had been delivered. All the money had gone straight to an anonymous account under my father's control. Standing in the quiet room, hands trembling, heart racing, Margaret stepped beside me, eyes stern. They thought they were clever. But Camila, no one can hide the truth forever. You hold all the evidence you need, you just need to know how to use it. I sat down at my laptop, cataloging every document. Dates, amounts, invoices, and cross-reference info. With each entry, I sighed, tired yet exhilarated. Exhausted from the sheer scale of deception, yet thrilled to finally see the full picture. Ethan and my father had been using Orion as their private cash source, deceiving employees and auditors alike. I decided to create a detailed diagram, eyes burning with determination. If I revealed everything now, Finn, my brother, and my father might catch on, warn each other, and destroy the evidence. I needed a plan, time. But the good news, I was no longer alone. Margaret was my ally, and I had all the documents I needed. Over the next week, I secretly tracked transactions, reviewed emails, old faxes, and Ethan's schedules. I carefully noted every detail: the Las Vegas seminar, Pebble Creek golf trips, $47,000 in consulting fees. Not a single detail escaped me. Each number, each address, each signature was a piece of the puzzle pointing to the truth. One evening, while reviewing the books in the old office, I received an email from an unknown address. "What have you discovered, Camila? Be careful, not everyone wants the truth revealed." My heart raced. The first warning. But I only smirked, thinking to myself, they can. Threaten all they want, they have no idea how many steps I've already prepared. They think I'll panic, but Camila is no longer that girl. I've sat on the fire. Now I am the fire. I shut my laptop, gazing out the window into the dim room. Snow still fell outside, but inside me burned a fierce resolve. I would expose every scheme. I would not let Finn and my father continue their games. Every document, every fake invoice was now a weapon, and I knew the day the truth came to light was only a matter of time. Margaret patted my shoulder gently. "Brace yourself, Camila. This battle isn't over and there are more surprises ahead." I nodded. This time I was no longer the fired girl, mocked by my family. I was the one in the shadows, knowing everything and ready to bring it all into the light. The next day, I decided to return to Orion under the guise of a special advisor, just as Harrison had suggested. The feeling this time was entirely different from the day I'd been fired. I walked in, eyes scanning every corner, every corridor, every office, every desk, everything now a tool for my plan. Margaret, the cleaning lady who had worked at Orion for over 20 years, was waiting for me in the basement, a place few people ever visited. She wasn't just a janitor, she was a living witness to the company's every shift. I knew she could see hidden relationships, offhand remarks that executives often overlooked. "Camila, I didn't think you'd come back," Margaret said, her voice gentle yet challenging. "But I know you need this." She pulled a stack of papers and a USB from her coat pocket and handed them to me. I took them, feeling as if I were holding an unexplored treasure. "These are emails," she said. "I secretly saved them from the server when I was still cleaning. They're directly related to Finn and your father, the plan to block your career at your previous companies, and even here at Orion." I sat on the old chair, near the stairs, opened my laptop, and began reviewing each email. My heart raced. Finn and my father, Jonathan, had emailed the companies where I had applied, labeling me as difficult, dishonest, lacking professional ethics. Some emails even contained fabricated documents, highlighting mistakes I had never made. Margaret watched me, her eyes bright with empathy. "I've heard them talking about you at the cafe near the office." They giggled, thinking you'd never know. "But I knew they couldn't imagine you would find a way back in. And now you're holding the proof in your hands." One email from Finn to Jonathan left me stunned. "We have to make Camila think every opportunity is closed to her. She will never advance. Make sure every company she applies to gets my report. I want her to suffer failure before coming to Orion." I trembled as I read further. "And don't forget, make Harrison believe the firing was necessary. We can't let her know the truth." Everything was painfully clear. This was a systematic, carefully planned operation targeting me for years. Margaret handed me another USB, small but heavy with secrets. "This contains internal call recordings. They talk about sabotaging your career, even at companies you've never directly worked at. They use fake names, fake numbers, but the voices, I recognized. I've listened countless times." I plugged in the USB and listened to short, conflicting audio clips. Finn's voice chuckled. "If Camila thinks she's smart, she'll be disappointed. Everything we do is discreet. Dad understands me, right?" Jonathan's cold voice responded, "Perfect. Camila will never know we orchestrated everything. She'll pay for her confidence." Rage surged within me, yet a sharp clarity settled over me. I now held evidence not only of financial misconduct but also emails and recordings showing Finn and my father had conspired to sabotage my career both outside and inside Orion. Every suspicion I'd had was confirmed. I took a deep breath and looked at Margaret. "Thank you. Without you, I'd never have known the extent of their malice." She smiled, her eyes glinting. "You know, Camila, sometimes the people everyone underestimates see the most. Now you have all the pieces, you just need the right moment to reveal them." I sat there, in the quiet room, feeling both exhausted and empowered. Every email, every recording, was a piece of the puzzle leading to the truth. Combined with the financial documents, the full picture would leave Finn and my father no room to deny anything. An idea sparked in my mind. I would confront them strategically, step by step, secretly yet decisively. Any rash move could destroy the evidence. But now, I had Margaret, the unexpected ally, and, more importantly, irrefutable proof. I lifted my gaze to the window, looking out at the bustling streets of Seattle, snow falling lightly on the rooftops, and felt the fire of determination burning inside me. After meeting with Margaret, I transformed Orion's office into my personal secret headquarters. Every day, I came not to follow ordinary tasks but to investigate and analyze every invoice, email, and document I had. I lived in a world of my own, where every detail could be a crucial clue. The first thing I did was compile all the financial data: payments for a so-called Las Vegas seminar that never happened, extravagant golf course bills that Finn constantly bragged about to his friends, and a fake $47,000 consulting fee my father had logged in the company books. I printed each page, marked every irregularity, and cross-checked with bank accounts, service invoices, even small contracts Orion had signed over the past few years. Each comparison revealed more missing funds, subtle edits in fine print designed to fool any accountant who glanced at them. But finances were only part of it. I knew Finn and my father weren't just after money, they were targeting my reputation and career as well. I reopened all the emails and recordings Margaret had provided, categorizing them by date, company, and recipient. The deeper I dug, the clearer the pattern became. Anywhere I had ever applied, any opportunity I had ever pursued, bore the fingerprints of Finn or my father, fake dossiers, slanderous letters, systematically cutting off my chances. One afternoon, I found an email from Finn to a recruiter in California. He wrote, "Camila is not trustworthy. She tends to be arrogant and does not fit our company culture. I recommend not considering her." Attached was a forged PDF with my former company's logo, detailing mistakes I never made. Staring at the screen, I saw the cold calculation behind a long-standing, meticulously planned attack against me. I couldn't believe it, but the fear slowly gave way to determination. I began creating a timeline, noting each fraudulent act, every time Finn or my father used a shell company to transfer funds illegally. I drafted cash flow diagrams, mapping out the companies they had fabricated, the fake invoices, and the paths money had taken from Orion into personal accounts. Every step was carefully documented so that, if necessary, it could be presented in court, to the board, or even to the press. Meanwhile, Finn still roamed the office, pretending everything was normal, laughing and joking with colleagues. He had no idea I had returned as an advisor, no idea I was tracking every move, every email, every meeting he attended. I almost chuckled silently. "Do you really think I'm still the girl you fired, Finn? You're dead wrong." On another day, I discovered my father, Jonathan, had signed a consulting contract worth $60,000 with an offshore company, but the invoice was entirely fake. I printed all the documents, added them to my master spreadsheet, and compared them with bank transactions. Every number matched perfectly. A chilling confirmation that their plan had been meticulously laid out for years. The culmination came when I combined financial data with email evidence. The funds that disappeared from Orion had all been funneled through shell companies, while Finn sent slanderous emails to potential employers. Everything they thought was hidden was now visible before my eyes. Standing in the office, looking at the papers spread across the desk, I realized I now held the full picture, with no loopholes left for Finn or my father to justify themselves. I took a deep breath, feeling exhausted yet empowered. From the girl who had been fired, belittled, and mocked by her own family, I had become the one holding every piece of evidence, ready to expose the entire conspiracy, fraud, and deceit that had dictated my career for years. Every plan, every lie, every fabricated figure was now laid bare. That evening, the warm, golden lights of the upscale Seattle restaurant glinted off sharp suits and elegant evening gowns, laughter echoing throughout the room. It was Finn's promotion party, my younger brother's night of supposed glory. I stood at the back, in a deep navy dress, heart pounding not with fear, but with anticipation. I knew the moment of reckoning had finally arrived. Finn beamed, boasting to colleagues and partners about his record-breaking sales and strategic vision, entirely unaware that the dazzling facade he had built was nothing more than a thin veneer covering the web of schemes and fraud I had painstakingly documented. Behind that forced smile, I held every number, every email, every document they thought no one could ever see. Harrison appeared, the company's CEO, who had discreetly called me in after my dismissal. He walked into the room, his face serious but eyes sharp with resolve. Every step he took exuded unwavering certainty. Finn's gaze snapped to him, startled, his attempts to appear calm, failing miserably as panic flickered across his face. Harrison stood in the center of the room. "I'd like to say a few words," he announced. The room fell silent, all eyes on him. I furrowed my brow, waiting for the pivotal moment, heart hammering in my chest. He opened his laptop and projected onto the large screen every forged invoice, every non-existent expense, every email Finn had sent to malign me to partners and recruiters. The names, numbers, and words I had spent weeks compiling now appeared in sharp, undeniable clarity. Finn stammered, "This can't be." He glanced at our father, Jonathan, searching for a lifeline. But my father's eyes revealed only discomfort, no escape. Harrison continued, "Camila, the one you assumed had been sidelined, has provided full evidence of the fraudulent and manipulative actions at Orion. Finn and Jonathan used shell companies to siphon tens of thousands of dollars while systematically undermining Camila's career across multiple firms. All of it is documented. Page after page of forged invoices, slanderous emails, and fabricated charges unfolded before everyone, leaving the guests unable to look away. Some were stunned into silence, others whispering in disbelief, while Finn's close colleagues stared at him in shock, even anger. I stepped forward, beside Harrison, locking eyes with Finn. You thought you could pull this off forever, that your family would shield you, and that I would stay silent. But no, everything has been laid bare. My voice was firm, steady, unshaken. Every cruel word, every underhanded move he thought invisible was now exposed for all to see. Finn turned, attempting an excuse, but Harrison's voice cut through firmly. There is no room for justification. Every piece of evidence is accurate and verifiable. Orion will not tolerate fraud and manipulation. Camila will be fully compensated and reinstated to her rightful position, while Finn and Jonathan must answer for their actions. Murmurs swept through the room. Directors flipped through documents, nodding in confirmation. Finn grew visibly flustered, face reddening, while Jonathan glanced around, seeking to avoid the eyes of the crowd. The tension was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. I felt a surge of excitement and satisfaction. From the girl who had been fired, belittled, and dismissed by her own family, I now stood strong, armed with justice and truth. The evening, meant to celebrate Finn, had instead become the stage for exposing deceit, forcing all who had underestimated me to face judgment in the eyes of everyone present. Finn turned to me one last time, as if to speak, but all that escaped was a long, defeated sigh. I smiled faintly, stepping back beside Harrison, realizing that every sleepless night, every tear shed over betrayal, had finally paid off. I was no longer a victim. I was the one controlling the narrative, revealing the truth, and ultimately, emerging victorious in the game my family and these schemers had thought they could dominate. That night, the lights still shimmered, the music still played, but for me, it was a quiet victory. A triumph not through force or revenge, but through truth, resilience, and the intelligence that Finn and Jonathan had consistently underestimated. I stepped outside, inhaled the crisp Seattle night air, and for the first time in years, felt freedom and triumph fill my soul. The next morning, the atmosphere at Orion's headquarters was entirely different. Meeting rooms and hallways that once buzzed with laughter now lay unusually quiet. Curious and apprehensive glances circulated as everyone absorbed the news. Finn had been immediately terminated, and Jonathan, my father, was stripped of his chairman title. I stood in Harrison's office, now entrusted to make executive decisions alongside him, my heart still racing from the shock of the previous night. But I could feel it clearly. I now held the power, the honor, and the justice that my family had long tried to block. Harrison looked at me with a small smile. Camila, last night was a spectacular performance, but today is the true beginning. We want you to take on the role of COO, Chief Operating Officer. Not just a title, but real authority over the company. I took a deep breath, pride and anxiety mingling. This wasn't a moment to celebrate, it was a moment to prove my capability and cement my position, something my family had doubted I could ever achieve. I will take on this responsibility, I said firmly. And I will ensure Orion operates transparently and fairly. No one will ever exploit or manipulate the company as before. Senior managers began gathering in the conference room, eyes filled with surprise and respect. They had once doubted me, looked at me with hesitation, but now, all witnesses could see a different Camila. Confident, sharp, and ready to lead the company forward. Some of Finn's former manipulations now visible to all. Employees who had been intimidated by him stood respectfully by my side, acknowledging that the one who once spread fear was gone, and I was now steering Orion's direction. I glanced over Finn's now empty desk, his personal belongings cleared away. No more arrogant stares, no more mocking smiles. A sense of relief and quiet satisfaction washed over me, not revenge, but justice restored. Staff began discussing new initiatives, restructuring departments, financial transparency, and implementing projects Finn had previously manipulated. I listened, took notes, and made the first decisions all based on one principle: no fraud, no favoritism, and opportunities for everyone to prove themselves. In the first few weeks, I focused on reviewing the entire financial system and ongoing projects. The records, invoices, and contracts I had collected now served to create a transparent foundation, preventing any abuse of power in the future. Finn and my father no longer held influence, and I knew every action I took would shape the new company culture. Harrison reminded me repeatedly, "Camila, power comes with responsibility. But I trust you will lead Orion not just with knowledge, but with integrity and fairness." I nodded, a mixture of exhilaration and satisfaction swelling in me. Finally, the night spent gathering evidence had been rewarded. Every day, I entered the office determined not just to run the company, but to prove that someone who had been belittled by family, deceived, and blocked from her career could rise, seize authority, and reclaim honor. New projects began flourishing, employees felt justice restored, and gradually, Orion became a place of trust, no longer shadowed by manipulation. One afternoon, I stood by the window, looking out over bustling Seattle, sunlight spilling across the skyscrapers, and thought, success isn't dictated by family ties or inherited power. Determination, intelligence, and justice are what carve your path. Finn, my father, and all who had underestimated me were now the past. My future power, honor, and freedom began here. And as I stepped into the conference room once more, all eyes on me with respect, I realized Camila had finally become the version of herself she had always dreamed of: leader, victor, untouchable. Every step I took was proof of resilience, intelligence, and justice, qualities my family had once tried to suppress. This was true victory. Camila's story isn't just about revenge or reclaiming corporate power. It's a mirror of what many young people face today: betrayal, manipulation, and prejudice from family or their environment. In real life, standing up for your honor, setting boundaries, and staying true to your values are essential keys to achieving success. Camila proves that even when someone is belittled or blocked, those who act smartly, resiliently, and fairly can reclaim authority, freedom, and the respect they deserve. What do you think about Camila's dramatic journey from being betrayed to regaining power and honor? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss the next compelling family story.